This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone, welcome to Mercury Solutions Limited webinar of Introduction to PMP. My name is Bishwa and I'm a trainer with Mercury Solutions Limited, and I'm gonna go through the entire Introduction to PMP webinar, wherein we are gonna tell you about the Project Management Professional or the PMP exam. Everything that you need to know about the PMP exam would be covered as part of the webinar. So without further ado, let's begin. First of all, when we talk about the PMP exam, we need to know about the organization or the institute that regulates that exam. The Project Management Institute, or the PMI, is an independent governing body that regulates and that takes care of controlling the PMP exam. It's a not-for-profit organization based out of Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, and today they have up to 300 local chapters of Project Management Institute that is located across various sections of the world. The PMI membership and the credentials that are provided by PMI, it signifies strongly that you have a seriousness towards your project management profession, and you make sure that you take your profession really seriously. As a PMI member, when you are enrolling with the PMI local chapters, or if you're enrolling with the PMI website, you get your access to a lot of resources, including free webinars, their latest publications, and most importantly, you get to connect with a lot of like-minded people who can help you your project management goal, and with whom you can share your knowledge and templates, articles, and guidelines for your own personal growth and for improving your own knowledge. When it comes to the PMP exam, or the Project Management Professional exam, it is considered as the gold standard of project management globally. It's a combination of standards, procedures, and processes that has been accumulated over years of expertise, and it is a collective effort of all the PMI members based on which they have come up with a publication called the Project Management Body of Knowledge, and the PMP exam is completely based out of the Project Management Body of Knowledge, or the PMBOK guide. And right now, there are close to 840,000 PMP active credential holders globally, and the number is still increasing. Once you have the PMP qualification, or once you have the PMP credential, it indicates that you are highly skilled and serious about your project management career, and it verifies that you are aware of the generally accepted best practices of the world. It is the most important industry recognized certification, and once you're done with your PMP, you will be able to find yourself in a situation where you would be able to handle and manage projects in a more efficient way and in a more structured fashion. The reason why most projects fail is because of the fact that we do not follow a standard structure to manage our projects. We just do things randomly. We are not aware of elements of communication management, risk management, or even how to integrate and bring all different elements of project put together. Managing a project is more often than not juggling multiple priorities in the air. So the project management professional, or the PMP credential, it helps you guide or manage your project in a structured way using the PMBOK standard. Once you're earning the PMP standard, one of the key benefits that you're going to have in your professional life is the salary that you can demand. Obviously, the salary is a big part of any educational investment that you need to make. So, what PMI does is they conduct an annual survey called the Pulse of the Profession Survey, in which it has been consistently observed that PMP credential holders, they earn 20% or higher amongst their peer group. So if you are a PMP credential holder, you create a branding for yourself, you create a niche mark for yourself, both within your organization and within the industry you are working in, and you are looked into as a professional trusted advisor. The best thing about PMP is that it is industry neutral. You do not have to be from a specific industry, or you do not have to be from a specific technology background in order to be able to sit, write, and clear the PMP exam. The PMP exam is directed to anyone, or it is for anyone who's really serious about the project management profession, and they want to bring together a structured approach for managing the project. With your PMP credential, you become better in structuring your work. You think the way PMI prescribes the PMBOK standards and policies, and you also start thinking how you need to put together different elements of the project, and how you can envision a project from start to end. The employers also do benefit as well. So when you are the when you are a PMP certified project managers, the first preference to handling critical projects or business important projects will come to the people who are PMP certified. More than one third of the project managers in any organization, if they are PMP certified, the organizational rate of conversion of the project success becomes significantly higher, about 60 to 70% higher. Because as of today, uh, whenever you see a project, or whenever you are working on a project, the chances of the project meeting the targets of scope, cost, schedule, etc., lies somewhere between 40 to 50%. However, with PMP, that success rate increases 70 to 80% in certain cases as well. The key advantages for PMP is manifold. Primarily, at the end of the day, when you are creating your or when you're gaining your PMP credential, you develop a process oriented approach to know what is the accepted best practice of managing a project. How do I need to conceive a project? How do I need to go ahead and plan for my project? How do I put that project plan into action? How do I monitor them? And lastly, how do I formally close my project by making sure that I gain an overall stakeholder acceptance? Once you are following the PMBOK standards, and once you're implementing the processes that are mentioned in the PMBOK, you get to know, or you bring everyone with a common level of understanding and vocabulary, and that helps you increase the efficiency with which you're working with your peers, with which you are working with your team members. And it involves a greater level of transparency of communication in the way you're managing your project, that eventually contributes to increase your project success together. It is one of the key project management approaches where quality is considered as a very important aspect. So holistic approach to quality in the planning that we do, or in the product that we are developing, is one of the key aspects of project management according to the PMP standards. And the organizational quality policies can be very easily integrated into the elements of PMP, and you need not create separate quality policies or standards for just one project. Whatever quality standards that you have, you can imbibe that, and you can smoothly integrate that within the PMP standard and still run your project. One of the key aspects of why PMP has been so successful, or it is considered as such a great standard of managing project, is based on the emphasis that is given in communication and resource management. Also, the stakeholders, or how you manage your stakeholders, and how you go ahead and integrate all the different elements which are called constraints, or which are often competing with each other. How do you manage them within a given boundary, or within your project management process, and still be successful, is one of the reasons why PMP is so important. And it provides you with a great advantage of making sure that if you are PMP certified as an individual or as an organization, you can expect a greater degree of project success in your daily life as a project manager. So, how do we go ahead, and how do we approach the exam? Who should apply? What exactly are the fees is what we are going to cover for the next part of the webinar. The exam itself, the PMP exam itself, is targeted for individuals who have certain level of experience in project management. It is not particularly for people who are just starting fresh out of college and they want to get into the project management profession. It is for people who have at least a basic exposure to project management. In other words, people who have worked in a projectized environment, and people who understand how a project is run and how a project is managed would be eligible for taking up the PMP exam. So if you're performing your general duties under the supervision of a project leader, and if you're aware of all the project from start to finish, if you're leading cross-functional teams, and if you're delivering project in order to meet your customers or even your internal organization time, budget, and resource requirement, or if you have enough knowledge and experience to apply a method based on which you create your project deliverables, you are eligible for the PMP exam. There's no hard and fast rule that you have to complete a certain number of years of experience in order to be eligible for PMP, but in order to ensure that you have a benchmark or you fit into the benchmark that has been set forward for PMP, you need to ensure that you either fall into one of these two categories. So these two categories, it is kind of the prerequisite that you need to have in order to be able to write the PMP exam. Before you actually write the PMP exam, you have to also ensure that you apply on the PMI website. We are going to talk about the application part a little later. But for now, let us just try to understand how, as an individual, you fit into the PMP eligibility criteria. First of all, if you hold a secondary degree, like a high school diploma or an associate's degree, then you have to demonstrate that you have at least 7,500 hours leading and directing projects. And you have also you have to also provide information to PMI that you have completed 35 hours of project management education. Any standard registered education provider or a training partner or a consulting company who's organizing training sessions would be able to provide you this 35 hours of project management education. The remaining two, the first and the second, it is dependent on your experience. So if you have just graduated from high school and then you started your work, or you have a diploma and you really do not have a graduate degree, then you have to at least show that 7,500 hours of project management experience is there in your kitty in order to be able to apply for the PMP exam. The second category, which people or most people fall into, is when you have a graduate degree. If you have a graduate degree and you have substantial years of experience, roughly 3 to 3.5 years of experience, you can easily show that out of those 3 to 3.5 years experience, you have 4,500 hours leading and directing projects. So this 4,500 hours, they roughly translate into 3 or 3.5 years of experience. So if you have done your engineering, completed your graduation in engineering or any other general graduation stream, and then you have entered your professional life and worked for 3.5 years in some form of project management standard, you go ahead, you are actually eligible for sitting for the PMP exam. At Mercury Solutions Limited, we help you through the process of getting an assessment for your experience, how you fit into the requirement, and how you can demonstrate the experience or showcase the experience to PMI in order to be eligible for the PMP exam. The 35 hours of project management learning or education still applies in the second category. And when you apply this 3,500 hours of project management education, it can be achieved through a training. It can be a classroom training or an online training. And also, you need to ensure that you go ahead and complete one of the assessment tests that is there at the end of the training. So once you do that, you are eligible for writing the exam and you are eligible for applying to the PMI. Each hour that you spend in your project management education is also considered as a PDU or a professional development unit. That is something that we are going to talk about later. That is something that is always required when you are trying to apply for PMP or post PMP if you're trying to go ahead and continue your project management education, which is a requirement from the PMI or the Project Management Institute. So before you go ahead and get started with your project management PMP certification, you have to ensure that you organize your work experience in the form of a template which is going to be given to you by Mercury Solutions Limited. And you have to ensure that you gather all your experience and apply to PMI in order to be able to ensure, in order to be able to make sure that PMI is aware of your background, and that application process is a validation of the fact that you are already a project management professional, in the terms of you have already worked in the project management environment, and you require a formal validation of your project management experience, which is going to be gained by obtaining your PMP credential, which you can achieve by completing your PMP exam successfully. Now, in order to complete the exam, you first have to understand the exam, and that exam would be of 4 hours duration, and you have to answer 200 multiple choice questions. We are going to go back, or we are going to, as we proceed with this webinar, we are also going to tell you how the exam is structured. But for now, just understand that we have 4 hours in which you need to complete 200 multiple choice questions to be able to clear the PMP exam. In order to maintain your PMP, once you gain your PMP, you need to ensure that you go ahead and renew your PMP credential every 3 years. And this is done in order to ensure that PMI, and the changes that is happening with the project management body of knowledge, you are always aware of it. Project management as a professional is ever evolving with new processes or new methods that are coming up every day. In order for you to be aligned with the changes that is happening in the industry, PMI highly prescribes that every 3 years you go ahead and renew your PMP credential. Now, in order to renew your PMP credential, what you need to do is you have to go ahead and showcase to PMI that after your PMP exam is done, or after you have gained your PMP credential, you have completed 60 hours of continued project management experience. And within this 3 years, when you go ahead and apply the 60 continued PDUs and pay the renewal fee, your PMP credential becomes valid for another 3 years. So the initial period for which the PMP credential is valid is 3 years, and then every 3 years you have to renew it. But that renewal process does not involve taking up another exam every 3 years. How is it done? It is done through something called as the Continued Certification Registry System, or the CCRS system, which you are going to get access to after you're completing your PMP credential. So during the sessions that we have here at Mercury Solutions, we also talk to you about how that CCRS credential should be maintained, and what exactly is the idea and logic behind going ahead and reporting to PMI about your continued project management experience. In order to be able to write the PMP exam, you of course have to need to pay a fee to PMI in order to register with them, or uh, in order to write the PMP exam. I highly recommend people, or the people who are attempting the PMP exam for the first time, in order to go for the membership with PMI, because there are many benefits of PMI membership. Annual membership of PMI cost $129, but if you're joining it for the first time, it costs $129 plus a $10 as an application fee. And you need to go to the PMI website, register yourself, pay up the fee, and over there you can go ahead and you can also have many information. You can also see all the required information that is required for your PMP, that is required for your PMP exam. One good thing about this payment process, or one good thing about PMI, is that you do not pay any money until your PMP application it's getting approved. We are going to talk about the application process, what exactly is required in a short while, but until and unless your application is getting approved, you do not have to pay a single dollar to PMI. Only when your application is getting approved, you will be getting an eligibility ID based on which you can go ahead and enroll for your PMI membership and then schedule your exam by paying the PMI exam fee. The exam fee or the exam cost for members of the PMI is $405. For non-members, if you do not wish to enroll with PMI, you need to pay $555, and then you need to go ahead and appear for the exam. As you can see, it is always beneficial to join with the PMI membership because eventually it is cost effective. And the benefits that you have in terms of the resources and the PMBOK that you can download, or the free webinars that you can access to, and the connection that you build with the project management community is immense. So I highly recommend the first timers to go ahead and enroll for the PMI membership. So I have been talking about the PMP application process for a while now. Let us just elaborate a little bit that how at Mercury Solutions Limited, we go ahead and help you apply for that PMP certification. So when you are starting your PMP certification, you must go ahead and submit the application to the PMI. It needs to be done online. When you do that, essentially, you are providing information to PMI about your past experiences, including your educational experience, including your professional experience, and including your experiences with regards to the education that you have with any training provider. Only when your PMP application is getting approved, PMI provides you with an authorization by creating an eligible ID, and you would be able to take the exam. The exam is an online exam, and it is conducted by Prometric centers that is located in various parts of the world. So you need to find out what is the nearest Prometric center in your city, and then you need to go ahead and register based on the eligibility ID. Out of all the applications that are submitted to PMI, about 5% of applications are randomly picked up for an audit. There's nothing to be worried about if your application gets picked up for an audit. It is just a quality control measure of PMI by which they want to keep checking whether the people, or whether the right kind of people are applying to the applying for the PMP exam. So if your application is getting picked for an audit, you will receive detailed instruction from PMI about what is the information that is required in order to that you need to provide to PMI. And more often than not, if you are providing true and complete information, and if you have the required number of experience and required number of years of experience to show for the credential that you're applying for, your audit gets cleared off very easily. The bottom line is, until and unless you're providing false information in your PMP application, your application is going to go through. And after your application is approved, you have a window of 1 year within which you need to complete the PMP exam. For example, if your application is getting approved on the 1st of January of 2019, let's say, you have time till 31st of December 2019 within which you need to take up the exam. The reason PMI gives you this 1 year window is to ensure that you can take up the exam at your flexibility, and PMI wants you to be your own assessor of your preparation in order to be able to sit and write for the exam. If you need to have more additional information about the whole exam structure, and if you need to know the frequently asked questions from the official PMI website, you can go ahead and visit pmi.org and look for the PMP handbook, and you will have more information about the entire exam process. When we do a session with Mercury Solutions Limited, we provide this PMP handbook to all the participants. We provide the actual download link to all the participants. so that they can have a first-hand feeling of what are the criteria that they should be able to match to know or to clear the PMP exam and to appear for the PMP exam and clear it. The PMP exam itself, it is based on the PMBOK guide. The PMBOK guide, it's a recognized standard for the project management profession. In the current state, we have the PMBOK guide version 6. That is the current version based on which the PMP exams are taken over. Um, the version 6 came into existence in March 2018. Prior to that, obviously, it was version 5. And almost every 2 to 3 years, PMI does a version change so as to ensure that it is keeping up with the ever evolving demands of the industry. For example, in version 6, you have a lot of elements of agile project management, which was missing from earlier version. So when you are applying for the PMP credential and when you are continuing your education with PMP, one of the key benefits that you have is you are never getting outdated. Your certification and your continued learning becomes a habit with you, which is going to stay on for the rest of your life. And with the ever changing versions and with this continued education that you are providing that you are providing to the that you're providing yourself, you are making sure that you are always industry ready and you are not getting outdated in terms of knowing the ways in which you go about implementing your project. PMBOK guide, it is a sum of all the knowledges of project management. It is a community effort that comes in together, wherein people from different industry, people of different backgrounds of project management come in together. And they try to create, and they have created a standard for managing projects globally. So it has traditional proven practices as well as the new evolving tools and practices that are being implemented in the world of project management, and it is constantly evolving. It is recognized as the good practice that you need to follow. In fact, it is recognized as the best practice that you need to follow in order to manage your projects. And most importantly, it's not a method. When we talk about a methodology is something in which you, as a participant, is given step by step instruction to follow in order to achieve a certain objective. It is not that. It is not that rigid. However, um, when it comes to the PMBOK guide, it is very flexible in which you can adopt the standard according to your requirements. The problem with the method is that you have to follow that method in that exact same way, and what method works for one person might not work for other person. From industry to industry, you have specific technical methods, or you have technical specific methodologies that you need to adopt, but there is generally a lack of standard project management method. And since we cannot methodize the concept of project management, and since we cannot go ahead and methodize project management as a profession, the standard is the best approach that we can have, wherein a set of standard practices and processes are given to you, and based on which you go ahead and adopt them to your project. When we do a webinar at Mercury Solutions, one of the key emphasis that we lay upon is the usage of different templates that has been described in various methods of PMP. In fact, when you are enrolling with us, you go ahead and get access to a number of templates and project management best practices guide in order to help you implement those learning in your real-time environment. So the real-time experience that you have and the real-time experience and the usage of templates that you are going to have is one of the key benefits that you have as part of enrolling with us at Mercury. So the PMP exam is a 4-hour duration, and you get 1 point for each correct answer, and there is no penalty for incorrect responses. So if you're really unsure about the question, if you're really not sure what should be the answer to a particular question, you can probably take an educated guess and still get that 1 point. The one thing that you have to remember about the exam is that the exam itself, although it's a 200 multiple choice question exam, um, Out of the 200 questions, 175 questions are based on which you are going to be scored together, and 25 questions are considered as pre-test questions. These 25 questions are scattered in together, and you will not know that which one is a scored question and which one is a pre-test question. The reason why PMI has those questions is because they want to check how people are responding to those questions and whether they can be included as a standard question for future versions of the exam. Um, Once you're tested, once you are done with the test, your evaluation is it pops up on screen. So after the 4 hours, when you hit the submit button, or if your time is up, the screen goes blank for a couple of minutes, and then you get your final score, whether it's a pass or a fail. At Mercury, we strive to give you professional services, and we try to give you as much information as possible with the exam itself, and that's the reason why we have our own simulation and test practices that we are going to that we conduct throughout our entire sessions. And the exams and the questions that you have in the Mercury exam is a very close resemblance to the type of questions you can expect in the PMP exam. After you are done with your after you are done with your test, you do not get to know what is the percentage of mark, because PMI does not reveal the percentage score um, for the exam that you have taken. However, it gives you your level of proficiency according to different process groups. So according to different process groups, you will be graded on needs improvement, below target, target, and above target. And an evaluation would be made, and a final evaluation would be made based on your different levels of proficiency, and you will be able to see that result on screen. When it comes to the process groups are the different processes that are grouped together that has a specific objective. So it's probably a new term that you're hearing for the first time. In order to understand process groups better, think of it in a way that you are achieving or you are conducting certain specific processes in order to achieve your project planning, or in order to execute your project, in order to monitor your project, or to close your project. Process groups, you should not confuse them with the project lifecycle. For now, just understand process groups as the things that you do in order to manage your project better. When you are scored in your PMP exam, you are scored based on your project management process group. And for each of these process groups that you see, for example, for initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and control, and closing, for all this process group, you are provided your target, or you're provided your levels of proficiency. If you're getting target in all the process groups, then obviously you are clearing. But as a general trend, I have seen that if you're getting target in any three of the process group, in planning, executing, monitoring, and control, and if you're getting below target in either initiating or closing, you should be able to pass the exam. There is no way by which you can know how much marks you have scored in the exam. Just a pass and a fail score, and your level of target or level of proficiency in each of the process group is given as part of your scorecard, and that's what you get at the end of the exam. And after you have cleared the exam, you get a certificate at your home. However, in that certificate, your level of proficiency is not mentioned. You just get information about the fact that you just get a certification about the fact that you have completed your PMP credential. Through the sessions that we conduct here at Mercury Solutions Limited, we provide you end-to-end guidance to prepare for the PMP exam. By completing or by entering into this session, you will get the required 35 contact hours to apply for the PMP certification, and you would be able to know completely about the project management framework as prescribed by PMBOK, which means that you will have that ability to understand the concepts of PMBOK and apply them in your daily project life. And the mode of communication that we have is very interactive here at Mercury, and it will definitely increase your level of preparation for the PMP exam. And through attending the process, you'd be able to understand the most important aspects of project management and how you should approach it. For example, defining the criteria of project selection, creating the project charter, which is the backbone of your project, identifying your stakeholders, identifying your risk, listing down your requirements gathering, creating work breakdown structures as part of your project plan, implementing the quality management techniques, methods of resource management, including how you need to develop them as a resource to work in your favor. You also learn about the different areas by which you can track your project performance. And we talk about how you can create different baselines and how you can go ahead and measure the performance of the project. And lastly, we also talk about formal project procurement and the closure of the project. So once you're enrolling with us, you are getting one of the most comprehensive ways through which a project needs to getting to know one of the most comprehensive ways through which your project needs to be managed from start to finish. And of course, we are preparing yourself in order to have an exam oriented approach that also helps you in preparing for your PMP exam. So as part of the enrollment, um, as part of the enrollment of you with Mercury, we take care of the fact that we set the expectations right and you know what you are enrolling for. Now, let us talk a little bit more about the different process groups that we had talked about earlier. First of all, in order to understand the concept of process group, you have to understand the definition of a project as provided by PMI. According to PMI, a project is a temporary endeavor that is undertaken to create a unique product, service, or a result. So, if you are working in the automobile industry and you are working to create the prototype of a new car, that's an example of a project. If you're working in the software industry and if you're working towards building an application that helps your customer um, facilitate better financial transaction, that's an example of a project. Now when you're walking into these kind of endeavors, you will need to ensure that you start your and you end your project within a definitive timeline. And in order to manage those timeline, in order to manage the work that you follow in those timeline, what PMI has done is they have divided or they have defined specific processes of project management, and they have divided it across 5 process groups. When you open the PMBOK guide and when you refer to the PMBOK guide, you will see that there are 49 processes as of today, which is described as part of PMBOK version 6. And those 49 processes are scattered around and aligned according to the nature of the process in the 5 process group. And it is divided into multiple knowledge areas, divided across different knowledge area. What exactly is a knowledge area? As you can see from the name itself, the knowledge area are specific aspects of the project that you're managing at any given point of time. You might be managing them together, you might be managing them independently, but you are managing them in some form of the other. So when you are talking about how you are managing a project scope or controlling your project scope, that is going to be covered by the area of project management or the project scope management. When you want to know how your project schedule is being managed, the project schedule management is the knowledge area that takes care of it. According to PMI, they have defined 10 such project management knowledge areas. And according to best practices of project management, if you are managing these areas, you should be able to manage your project well within the given defined constraint. And all the processes that we have in those knowledge areas, they're distributed across 5 process groups, wherein you need to ensure that each knowledge area has certain processes, and each process group is making sure that you are approaching your project in a structured way. In case if you're wondering why the knowledge areas are beginning with the number 4 and going on, it is because of the fact that these knowledge areas are numbered according to the chapter that we have in PMBOK. So in PMBOK, we have a total of 14 chapters, um, and the first 3 chapters It is some introductory framework that is talked about, and from chapter number 4 onwards, you get into the learning of the actual project management knowledge areas. When we deliver our sessions are at Mercury Solutions, what we do is we stick to the same framework that has been given by PMBOK, and we follow the same structure. At the end of the day, when you are enrolling with Mercury Solutions, you will be getting end-to-end comprehensive understanding of 14 chapters together. So after this project stakeholder management, which is the 13th chapter, we provide you information about an additional chapter called the professional and the social responsibility of a project manager, which is also very vital to your project management PMP preparation. So a combination of this 5 process groups and this 10 knowledge areas is what we are focusing at, and we take care individually um, to ensure that you understand all the processes, all the 49 processes with regards to their inputs, their tools and techniques, and the outputs, and how you need to apply that logic in order to be able to improve the way you manage your project. It is not a very bookish approach that we follow. It's an approach that is very practical in nature, and in every step of the way, you are given instances, scenarios, and examples that would be relevant to your specific industry. And we do appreciate a lot of communication and interaction that is coming in from our participants in order to keep our sessions more and more interactive. We'll now talk about a little bit about a project in terms of its life cycle and how it is related and how you integrate together elements of project lifecycle and product lifecycle. When it comes to a project lifecycle, it is a series of phases that the project passes through from its initiation till the closure of the project. So, a project lifecycle, there is no best way to define the project lifecycle. You can think of it as in a timeline basis. In your project timeline, at any given intervals, if you're achieving something significant, that signifies your particular phase of your project. So it is also defined by the industry standard or the type of organization you're working in. However, it is important that as you pass through this timeline, you always generate outputs and make sure that you transition from one phase to another by having a formal technical handoff. So at the end of each phase, you have something called as a phase gate that signifies the fact that one process is ending, one project lifecycle phase is ending, and you are okay, and you have the go ahead to begin with the next phase itself. So if I had to give a simple example, let's say if you're constructing a house, one of the key phases would be for you to go ahead and acquire the land on which you are going to go ahead and create your house. So that's a phase at the end of which you are getting the land in your hand in order to be able to start the construction. So from the conception till the closure, you will have a time bound deliverable that needs to be delivered as part of your overall planning. And this is what your project life cycle is significant of. So it is the project phases or project life cycles are divisions within the project, and they include the work that you need to deliver, and they have interrelationships amongst themselves, and you often involve different organizations and skills in order to be able to deliver. You involve different cross-functional people in order to be able to deliver the project in a structured fashion. At the end of each phase, you get specific deliverables which come in together and integrate together to form the final project product that you need to hand over to your customers. So phases, they are um, typically aligned to what you want to achieve as part of the specific area of your project, and every time you need to have a formal phase completion that has to be signed off by your stakeholders. And once you're closing a project, it's a trigger of you going ahead and moving to the next phase for your project. So the advantage that you have in this phase-wise approach of project management is that you're able to break down a very complex set of activities into smaller manageable sets, and you provide accurate ownership of those deliverables to your project. So when we do our sessions here, what we do is we go ahead and approach and we go ahead and take a case study that is going to be consistent throughout our entire lecture or throughout our entire delivery, by which you as a participant are more uh, you as a participant get to understand the concepts of how a phase-wise delivery of a project can be envisioned. At the end of the day, your success is what matters to us, and at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you get enough experience or enough exposure to project management oriented approaches, and you start implementing the learning going ahead in your daily project life. When we talk about a project life, more often than not, we try to associate with the product life itself. But the project life cycle and the product life cycle are entirely different concepts. And we ensure at Mercury that when we are providing information about project life cycle, we try to provide the context of the project life cycle in the whole big picture of the product life cycle. Now, as you can see from the slide, the boundaries, the external boundaries, the longer boundaries is what entitles a project life cycle, and the smaller life cycle or the smaller boundary that we have within the product development phase is what a project life cycle entitles. So let us now try to understand what is the difference between these two and how these two are interrelated. When we talk about a project product life cycle, it is generally longer, and it starts from a point of time when you conceptualize the product for the first time, and until and unless you are looking at the end of life or you're divesting the product from the target group, the product life cycle remains valid for that particular product. For example, let's say you own a particular brand of a car. So from the point of time that brand was first launched by that company till the point of time that brand would be completely stopped by the company, it constitutes the product life cycle. However, in the case of a project life cycle, every time you are going on developing the prototype of the car, or every time you are working on the upgrade of the car, you use the project lifecycle in order to initiate, plan, execute, and close that formal project, at the end of which you are getting a unique product which goes into operation. The key difference between project lifecycle and product lifecycle is that the product lifecycle always consists of the operational lifecycle till the point of time in which you are making the same product over and over again, launching them in the market, and then going ahead and earning revenue from it is what constitutes your product lifecycle. In more ways, in many ways or in most scenarios, one project lifecycle is actually a result of your existing product lifecycle. That means when you are talking about a product, throughout the entire life cycle of the product, if you have an upgrade of the product or if you have a modification or an improvement of the product, you might require to spawn many project life cycles together, and each project life cycle is a result of the improvement that you're trying to bring in together in the product, and each project will have its own life cycle. The life cycle depends on the controlling needs of the performing organization or the specifications that have been provided by the product development people in order to deliver the product or in order to improve the product. So we come to the end of the webinar, and we wanted to just take you through some of the closing remarks that we have. When you enroll with Mercury Solutions, you are getting the best in-class standard project management education that includes the complete coverage of training materials based on the PMBOK 6th edition guide. The participants that we have that enroll with us and then go ahead and take up the exam for the first time, they have 97% success rate, and the learning that is because of the fact that the learning that we have, it is more oriented towards how you implement the learning. So we are not only focusing on the content or the concepts that we have, we are focusing on the fact that how you are applying the concepts after you are done with the session. It's a proven learning method based on which you will be able to clearly devise a strategy to clear your PMP exam. We help you in all steps of the way, including providing you with enough information about the questions, enough information about the simulated environment in which you can go ahead and take up the exam. We also help you in your application process. We help you in your evaluation process. And most importantly, we provide you with a complete end-to-end plan that you can use for being successful in the PMP exam. Our methods have worked and our methods have been successful, and our students are a testimony of that fact. So it's an application oriented approach by which you can expect a lot of case studies, interactive discussions and exercises, which is going to help you increase your level of comfort, and you would be able to better prepare for the PMP exam. We have 14 modules which are highly interactive, and in these 14 modules, we individually approach each of the modules in a exam-oriented fashion, as well as making sure that out of these 14 modules, the key learnings are highlighted in order for you to be able to implement the key learning in your daily project life. We wish you success in your project management professional preparation. And if you need to get in touch with us, and if you have found this webinar interesting, please get in touch with us using the link that is provided below. The email is training@mercury.co.in, and you can also reach out to us in via phone. The number is +91 8882 233 777. We wish you best of luck, and we thank you for attending the webinar. Thank you.